I want to talk about a phenomenon that I am experiencing in the world of the women that I serve. And I think it's really important that it's addressed. Some of us women are going through stuff. I believe that 2026, this year, is the year for freedom, which is about living the life of a liberated woman, a woman who is set free from the shackles of her pain, of her past, of her misery, of her sorrow, of her heartbreak, of her grief, and steps into the flourishing dimension of all that which is possible for her in her life. And this is a message that's really strong on my heart for women out there for this year. Let us give ourselves permission to be liberated from the sorrow and the pain that we have been shackled to. This is the year, if we choose, we can step into what I call the wild feminine. The wild feminine is the woman who is unbridled in her passion, in her purpose, in her mission, in her drive, in her desires. She is the woman that says, I give myself permission to be happy. I give myself permission to be free. I give myself permission to have the things that my heart desires. I give myself permission to experience and be the embodiment of pleasure. This is the year, ladies, where we are no longer normalizing that it is okay as part of our womanhood experiences to carry baggages, to carry pain, to carry hurt, to carry grief, to carry bitterness, to carry resentment. And so, for those who are in that space where your heart is heavy, where your situation is tight, where there is a voice inside of you that wants to scream, this is the year we give ourselves permission. This is the year I want you to say, I have drawn the line of my pain and misery. There is a lesson that this has for me, but I am now ready to step into the dimension of what looks like a flourishing prospect in my life. And so, ladies, if there are situations that we need to get out of, please give yourself permission to get out of those situations. If there are circumstances where you need to say no, please give yourself permission to be okay to say no. If there are situations, desires, needs, and wants that need your yes, your embodied, orgasmic, ecstatic yes, give yourself permission to say yes. Now, I'm tired of the narrative in the collective of womanhood that is only around the weights that we carry, the pain that we go through, the perseverance that we go through, the endurance that we go through. I'm not saying that we won't ever have those experiences. So this is not a soft girl life type of message that I'm speaking to, but I am saying that we need to normalize that a woman who is liberated is a woman who is joyful. We need to normalize that there is a space for us as women to live expansive, free lives. And this is really what the whole overarching theme for us at the Mega Woman community is about, particularly the upcoming retreat happening in South Africa in November, which is themed Wild Feminine. The wild feminine is a woman who refuses to stay wrapped up in the smallness of her circumstances. She's a woman who allows herself to be inspired to step out of all that which she only knows and embrace a wonderful possibility of a future ahead of her. She's also a woman who lives from a place of her embodied truth. In other words, she allows herself to be given the opportunity to say no, to be given the opportunity to say yes, and she does so without guilt, without apology. She's a woman who is driven by pleasure and desire. And this can be quite controversial because oftentimes when we think about women and pleasure, it can have different negative connotation. But when we talk about pleasure in this context, it's about a woman who has given herself permission to live from that place of enjoying every element that her life entails. So when she's going down to the shops to buy groceries for her family, There is a pleasure in that. When she's at home cooking food, there is a pleasure in that. When she's making love to her partner, there's a pleasure in that. When she's eating her favorite treats, there's a pleasure in that. We as women have been cultured and conditioned to have a negative response to what pleasure means, because we have only ever understood pleasure from just a sexual connotation. But pleasure is this really granular experience of seeing life in its most beautiful expressions. And so the mundane things no longer become mundane, they actually become joyful things, they actually become intriguing things, they actually become interesting things. And it's within that curiosity and interfacing and engaging with the mundane in this way that life becomes joyful, life becomes worth living, life literally becomes a breath of fresh air. And this is what the wild feminine is really speaking to. This is what the wild feminine is awakening in the hearts of women who are ready to put down the baggages and ready to step into the light of their brilliant self. The wild feminine is also the woman who allows herself to feel the range of the emotions that arise in her journey of womanhood, whether it's the depths of grief, sadness, and sorrow, right through to the orgasmic ecstasy of joy, bliss, and happiness. She is unafraid of her emotions. She is unafraid of her feelings because she understands that her feelings encode an intelligence, that if she would lean into it, if she will pay attention to it, it will respond likewise in her body and cause her to shift the energy that needs to be shifted in order for her to get to her next stage. And this means that she's not only a woman who is in tune with her feelings, she's also a woman who is embodied. When we talk about being embodied, what we are referencing is a woman who is attuned to the physical sensations of her body. She understands the workings of her body beyond just a biological function, but rather she understands the workings of her body as a representation of a sacred temple, as a representation of an intelligence, as a representation of a physical oracle. And so she no longer takes her body for granted. She no longer ignores the cues that her body gives her, but rather she begins an engaged dialogue with her body. She begins to tune into the sensations. She begins to tune into the movements. She begins to allow her body freedom of expression, and through the freedom of her expression she starts to decode the understanding of the intelligence that her body is communicating. A woman who is living from a place of wild feminine is also a woman who embraces a life of ease. Now hear me correctly. To embrace the life of ease does not mean that life will be easy. To embrace the element of ease in life means that she will always make an intentional choice to choose the path of least resistance. And so her constant engagement in the various interfaces of her life, whether they are highs or lows, challenges or joys, she will always have a conversation within herself as to how will I navigate this experience in the way that ensures I bring out only the highest vibration of my being. How will I navigate this context, this situation, this challenge, this relationship, this child, this business, this finances, from a place of least resistance, so that yes, it's stressful, yes, it's overwhelming, yes, it's anxiety inducing, yes, it's causing me challenges and issues, but I'm also going to choose to believe that this situation always has a solution. And rather than being fixated on the problem, I'm going to expand my mind to look for how do I navigate this without losing myself. A woman who is embodied in her wild feminine is a woman who also has a relationship with ease. She chooses her battles. It is not every time that she has to have the last say. It is not every time that she needs to argue. Sometimes she will just step down and allow the nature and karma and just destiny of life to do what it needs to do. A woman awakened to her feminine energy is a woman who allows herself to be magnetic. In other words, She recognizes that if there is a desire that she holds within her heart, there is also a responsibility that she becomes the container in which the frequency of that desire can be held. So if she has a desire of being rich or being a mother, of being successful or being a wife, whatever those desires may be, she operates in her present time from that perspective of that desire. So she no longer looks at her existing context as her existing circumstances as a measure of her worthiness for that desire. Rather, she uptakes the frequency, even within her current context, to refer to her worthiness for that desire. So, in other words, to be magnetic, what she chooses on a daily basis is to be the embodiment of her future self. She already sees herself as the high flying, successful CEO. She already sees herself as that wonderful, nurturing, loving wife. She already sees herself as that wonderful, loving, nurturing mother. And she operates from the mindset of that future self, regardless of what her current circumstances tell her. A woman who is awakening to the wild feminine is a woman who lives by inspiration. She lives an inspired life. Every single day, she wakes up with a sense of invigoration. She wakes up with a sense of purpose. She wakes up and she's excited about what new things she can bring into the world. She is inspired by art. She's inspired by food. She's inspired by smell. She's inspired by touch. She's inspired by feelings and sensations. She's a woman alive to her senses around her. She's a woman who has curiosity, which sparks the inspiration. She's a woman who allows inspiration to take her down a majestic, adventurous, and magical path of creativity. So, in other words, a woman who is embodied in her wild feminine, awakening to this essence of wild feminine within her, is a woman who will embrace creativity, is a woman who will allow inspiration to come in and through her, and as a result, create new things. She's a woman of birthing capacity, bringing new things to life. And in bringing those new things to life, she brings joy in those experiences. A woman who is awakened to the wild feminine is a woman who is nurturing to herself. It is her already natural instinct to be nurturing to those outside of her, her children, her husband, her business, her team members, her colleagues, etc. But she's a woman who says, I will pour into myself. I will nurture myself. I will pamper myself. I will love on myself. I will give myself what I need so that I become a woman who is in her overflow and not overwhelmed. A woman who is in her wild feminine has a beautiful relationship with self. She has a beautiful relationship with boundaries. She has a beautiful relationship and understanding with her self-worth and her self-valuation. She knows what her non-negotiables are. She knows that which she will say no to and what she will say a joyful yes to. And she does not compromise these standards. A woman who is living and thriving from the energy of wild feminine is a woman who is also ignited. She is ignited with passion. She is ignited with purpose. She has a vision. She is ignited with the Esther mandate, where she knows that she is here for such a time as this, where she knows that there is more to her life and she's in pursuit of it. She's alive to that which God has called her to do. She's excited about the vision that she holds and she takes action. She is fired up from within, determined from within, and it begins to show in her output, not to lead her into burnout, not to lead her into overwhelm and exasperation, but to gracefully lead her into that organic space of evolving, that organic space of growth. And so she takes action on her desires. She takes action on her ideas. She is inspired. She's ignited. She's invigorated. She comes alive. And every day is a representation of what that aliveness looks like in her. A woman who is living from that place of wild feminine doesn't take no for an answer. She's not aggressive, but she's instinctive. She is convinced about what she believes, and she has a determination to go after it. Despite what her circumstances show her, there is an unquestionable power that she holds within her that gives her self assurance, gives her self confidence, gives her self valuation to go for that which she desires. And of course, there may be times where she falls, she lands in the wrong way, but she never gives up. She stands up, she dusts herself off, she puts on her crown again, and she continues the magnetic journey of being the best version of herself. A woman who lives from the place of wild feminine is a woman who's going to exude the qualities of divinity. She is going to be the fragrance in the room that is long remembered even when she has left the room. She is a woman that will enter into any space, any room, and she's going to be honored for her presence. She embodies an eclectic presence, an executive presence, and she exudes peace, love, harmony, grace, joy. She is someone that is easy to be around, easy to love and approach because she exudes a fragrancy that is so attractive. When we live from the place of our wild feminine, which is my invitation for us in this year, let us live from these principles that I've shared with us today. Let us live with excitement of life. Let us live with the magneticism of life. Let us live with the inspiration of life.